Hello, I'm film and television composer Clive Coburn. My father always spoke about the long term and the short term, and that to take care of your future, you need to keep an eye on both long and short term prospects. In my case, the short term jobs would be the commercial commissions, but I was actually more interested in the long term, which meant projects that I really wanted to do. If the libretto for an opera came along, I would try not to worry about immediate financial problems and get stuck in and write it.
Tell me about this other musical that you did, which is it
Boadicea?
Boadicea?
There's a lot of video on this podcast, and I'll be eternally grateful to cameraman Andy Coleman and sound operator John Carpenter, who offered their professional services free of charge. One scene was filmed from the back seat of my old Honda Accord station wagon as I drove the 600 Ks to mix the music we'd recorded in the lab studios with Ollie Harmer in Auckland to mix with my son Henry at his studio in Wellington. The filming in the car was done on the desert road that crosses the volcanic plateau in the centre of the North Island of New Zealand. The way it all came about was that I had an email from a guy in England called Michael Hall, who writes the text for operas, the libretto, and he sent me Boudica, which I really liked the look of, but preferred the other name for the character, which is Boadicea, and it's a much nicer word to sing. I hope I can meet Michael Hall one day, but the trouble is the poor guy is very, very ill, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be with us, which would be very sad if he didn't get to see it.
These guys are all top musicians, and this is hard, but even for them, because it changes. That's what makes it exciting, is that you go from, full-on war, blood and guts and rape, to soft, beautiful, sensuality and femininity and love, it's in the space of that. So vocally and as an actor, it's great because it's a meaty role.
Queen Boadicea lived a couple of thousand years ago. She was a young queen who became queen because her young husband, Prasotagus, was killed because his horse took him under a tree and he was left there hanging.
That cunning savage now detour through the wood. Your cries of exultation, thrill and joy cut off. Oh, then you chose the low branches. You chose the fork that clamped my husband's neck and held him hanging lifeless from a tree. You chose, horse, you chose. I saw your eyes when riderless you returned. I saw your eyes, horse, I saw your eyes. Blinded now you tread the treadmill, you grind the corn. Your ankle shins and well-trod mud, you chose, horse, you chose.
She was left to be queen now that he'd gone, and she was overwhelmed when she heard the love and adoration that people had for
I
her.
had not seen it. I had not noticed it. What love I saw, I thought for King Prasotagus, but now the cries have flesh and strength.
The text was a monologue, so needed just one singer-actress and a band. This meant it was going to be practical and easy to put on, and need almost no production costs. I started writing it in an operatic style, but soon my more natural pop-rock way of writing took over. I'd look at a section of the libretto, write the music for it, then look for where else in the text I could repeat that music, the same mood. I'm pretty sure that every composer does a similar thing with film scores. It's good for an audience to become familiar with the music of an opera as it progresses.
Oh, I really struggled with that, Clive, at the beginning, the coronation bit, because it's not arrogance, it's not, oh, I'm fabulous, it's just, wow, this is really cool, people are really into me. Yeah.
And all was well, but the Romans came in, and the Romans just sort of walked into England and just started living there, it seems, and there was no real war. But the Roman tax collector pops in to see Queen Boadicea and her tribe, the Iceni, one day.
He spoke before us all.
They rape her daughters, and then they decide they'll have a bit more fun and flog Boadicea. This makes her so mad that she goes to war against the Romans.
I remember Colchester and puny London sacked and banned. How could I forget St. Albans' blood-red soil? Now let war begin, I hear that glorious sound. 10,000 battle cries sear the morning air. Cries to stop an eagle in its flight. See a tide of warriors flood the Roman ground. Wave a mighty wave. We break upon their shore. How is it still they stand? How is it still they stand?
I suppose there is a formula for writing a successful musical, but I certainly don't know what it is. This new piece of music theatre was to be a rock drama, and there's no formula for that. So it was just going to evolve. I didn't want it to be song, dialogue, song, but rather to be sung dialogue, which is recitative. On occasion it would merge into longer musical pieces that may or may not be songs or arias. Often the arias in opera are wonderful, but the recitative is like filler. I was going to do my best to make the recitative as attractive as the songs or arias. I mean, do you think that would be possible? Do you think that a show like that would be great to write and great to listen to? I think that if I could pull it off, it would be a very satisfying summit of my life's work. I would love to pull that off. I decided that a solo 2-hour performance would be too long for both the audience and the singer, so started cutting the libretto, and Malcolm Hall didn't seem to mind. The end result was 50 minutes and 1,200 bars long. The mood and tempo changes are continuous, and the music never stops. Singing coach Cheryl McClay had previously found Lois McIver, who sang the New Zealand song in Islands of Fire for me. When I called her to see if she had any suggestions for a singer-actress to play this new role, she immediately said, Georgia's Boadicea. Together, Georgia and I put all the different sections into the perfect key for her, so she could stay in her hard chest voice and sound as strong and exciting as possible. As soon as a rock singer gets higher, and has to change into a sweeter head voice, her power is gone. I then had to make the various sections flow seamlessly into one another musically. This is Georgia and the fantastic 4-piece original Boadicea band playing the scene where our heroine at dawn looks out over her huge but totally untrained sleeping army.
At dusk I climbed that ridge and looked upon the Roman sea 3 miles away. The echo of a dry lake song had warmed that Roman camp. Ah, there's a different world, a strong, well-ordered world, harsh, male and dominant, that could eclipse and subjugate. Dear gods, lay a test or punishment.
The bass player for Valdemar way back in '74 was Neil Hannon. Now, 30 years later, Neil was the busiest bass player in Auckland and the most regularly used gun for hire. Neil and I reconnected after all those years, and when I told him I'd been working on Boadicea, he was interested in the project and offered to play bass. I was new to Auckland, but he knew of a guitarist and drummer who may rehearse it up for me and for no cost. I'd play keyboards. Now I had to get my act together. For the first time in more than 40 years, I had to buy a keyboard that I could use live, and I decided on a Yamaha Motif. The sounds from this keyboard instruments are great, and they're stronger than the virtual instruments that come with my Mac. Rob Galley was the guitarist and played some terrific things like the solo in the War Scene, which I'll play in a mo. But it starts with a solo from me playing organ. It sounds pretty flash, but it's just the G blues scale. Keyboard players can play like this in just a few hours. My six-man Paul Dunningham was the drummer. Paul hated humping his drums around, so owned 2 or 3 kits. He left one of them set up in my flat for all those months. This meant that I had to walk around them, going from my bedroom to the kitchen, but I liked that. It was a constant reminder that a project of mine was being rehearsed, and it was very exciting. Paul was also a collector of classic American cars and was currently driving a Ford LTD hearse that fitted a kit of drums as easily as a coffin. The original Boadicea band was the most competent bunch of musicians I've ever played with.
Well, this is it. We've done the rehearsals. We're going to record. What's rocking? I'm ready to go. Wicked. About a 3-4 month process up till now learning this piece. It's difficult. It's the hardest thing I've ever done vocally because of the changes.
Classical music can follow drama because it doesn't have a rhythm going straight through it, but rock music can't. The music goes and stops, but it doesn't go up and down within the song. I think you can change that and do in Boadicea, so it changes every 8, 12 or 16 bars.
The writing's so good is that she isn't always staunch. She's not, you know, you want to see her fear, her femininity, her sexiness, her maternal side, the absolute courage that it took her to stand up as a woman. For the first time in the Celtic history, all the tribes were united under this one woman.
Okay, so that was okay?
Yeah, but you didn't get your bends.
No, what about in the... I'd love some bends in there. Otherwise it starts like a keyboard. You know, it doesn't have the personality of a guitar. She gets all these people who are completely untrained, grocers and butchers and blacksmiths, all behind her, and they go to war against the Romans.
And now these men who sleep out there, these fields of sleeping warriors, no soil, pruned no trees. Since early spring they've grown, but war and thoughts of war. Dear God, I feel a battle rages in me, so deep I scarcely know. And in the that's a part of me that knows, in battle with a part of me. Yet look, my hand is firm, my body straight and strong. Dear gods, this is a strange, strange day. I wash her flame with sea, with fire.
Sadly, Michael Hall never saw his show performed, as he died before we'd even recorded it. His wife told me that he loved what I'd done with his words and took the demo of Jackie Clark singing it to the hospice for his last few days. I wish he'd heard the version with Georgia in the band rather than just Jackie and my piano. Librettists are few and far between, and I would have loved to have written another show with him. If you'd like to stage Boadicea, you can download everything you need from my OneDrive. It has a rehearsal video that helps you learn and produce the role, and a demonstration video that you can play to potential producers, however big or small. There are even videos of the musicians' parts, which means that rock musicians who may not read music are able to follow the music on a Logic file as they hear it. This means that you can make the show work on your own or with someone else. You can then jump in a van and take it to the festivals, schools and street corners of the world. You could even become a lock jumper throughout the world. Lock jumpers are musicians who entertain on river cruises. They park their cars near the lock where they're going to get off the boat after their performance, and then they all get into one of their cars and go back a lock or two to jump on the boat and do their performance. Fantastic. Then they get off the boat and into their cars and tootle off home. Boadicea is 50 minutes long, so equivalent to one set from a band. It's intensely dramatic and highly memorable, and everyone who sees it will at least respect it, even if it wasn't their cup of tea, and they'll never forget it.